And welcome to Long Live the Queen, where we talk about the women who made history. And by we, I mean the royal we, because it's just me. Today we're going to talk about Joan of Evreux. Joan of Evreux was born in the year of our Lord 1310. Her father was the Count of Evreux, and her family were the princes of the blood after the Valois line. It went Capetians, then Valois, then Evreux. When Joan was just 4 years old, there was a scandal at French court. The king's 3 daughter-in-laws were caught up in a cheating scandal that left one of them under house arrest and the other 2 in prison. The King of France was little Joan's cousin, King Philip IV. Not long after this scandal, the King of France died, and his oldest son became king. This king may or may not have had his wife murdered, and he remarried immediately. But then he died, leaving his wife 4 months pregnant. His son was soon born and succeeded him, but died at just 5 days old. The baby, King John, was succeeded by his uncle, the king's second son, King Philip the Tall. King Philip the Tall may or may not have had his 5-day-old nephew killed. People suspect, but there's no evidence. It was a whole Richard III problem. The year after King Philip ascended the throne, his only son died in childhood, and he had only daughters left. When he died, he was followed by his younger brother, King Charles, the 3rd son of the king. King Charles got his marriage annulled, properly, by the Pope, and he remarried immediately. But his second wife had lost 2 children, and her own life, so King Charles was looking for a 3rd wife. On the 5th of July, 1324, 14-year-old Joan of Evreux married 30-year-old King Charles IV of France. Don't love that dynamic. Her family was attempting to help secure a Capetian heir, so the Valois couldn't take charge of the throne, and a male heir was the only way to do it. It took about a year for 14-year-old Joan to get pregnant. Yikes! And at 15, she was expecting. Hopefully, she was expecting the desperately needed boy the Capetians needed. At the age of 15 or 16, Queen Joan gave birth to her baby, Princess Jean. Not a boy. Queen Joan was expecting soon after. During this second pregnancy, her only child, Princess Jean, died at just 8 months old. Queen Joan had her second baby at the age of 16 or 17, Princess Marie, another girl. The following year, Queen Joan was expecting again, but in February, her husband, King John, died at the age of just 33. His wife, 23-year-old Queen Joan, was 7 months pregnant. The 1st of April, 1328, Queen Joan had her 3rd baby, Princess Blanche. This meant the King of France had 2 surviving daughters with his 3rd wife. No boy, no succession. And his 2 surviving daughters had the same names, Marie and Blanche, as his first 2 wives had, Blanche and Marie. Is that awkward? There would be no more royal children, and this meant no male Capetian heirs. The royal family was going to go from the Capetians to the Valois. Don't worry, though, the Valois are so much drama. Plus 100 years war, so we won't run out of content, just Capetians. So Queen Joan's cousin husband had died, and both her and her husband's male cousin became the new King of France. They were all cousins together. The last Capetian king is dead, and his wife had a girl. Long live the first Valois king. 35-year-old King Philip VI of his name, the original Valois king, and we are in for a bumpy ride. King Philip was married to Joan of Burgundy. Remember back in Margaret of Burgundy's episode when I said her parents were marrying their second daughter to the second Prince of the Blood? Well, that second Prince of the Blood had been promoted to the first Prince of the Blood, and when the Capetians faltered with male heirs, he had become king. So now, just like her sister, Margaret of Burgundy, Joan of Burgundy was Queen of France, and we'll talk about her next episode. Back to our Dowager Queen Joan. Her husband was dead. She had 2 young daughters, and her cousin was the new King of France. The cousin she didn't marry. Bummer when you marry the wrong cousin. 13 years after the death of Queen Joan's husband, her second daughter died at the age of just 14. Dowager Queen Joan was left with just 1 surviving daughter, the baby born the July after her husband's death, 13-year-old Princess Blanche. On the 8th of January, 1345, Dowager Queen Joan's daughter Blanche married the son of Joan's cousin, King Philip. So, her second cousin, a second cousin whose father was the first cousin of both of her parents. So that's a double second cousin. It's probably for the best that they didn't have children. Dowager Queen Joan never became grandmother. She died the 4th of March, 1371, at the age of 60 or 61. Her small statue of the Virgin and Child can be viewed at the Louvre Museum in Paris. And Joan's niece would be the second wife of the king following Joan's husband because everyone's related. And that is where I'll leave it for now. What did you think of Joan of Evreux? Despite her living to 60 years old, we don't have much information on her post-Capetian life. I'd like to take a moment to give a shout out to one of my patrons. Shout out to Barbara. Welcome. You can share your thoughts with me or request a shout out at longlivethequeenpodcast@gmail.com or on Facebook or Instagram at longlivethequeenpodcast. Or, like the epic Barbara, you can join us on Patreon. Long live to all the queens out there. And until next time, bye.
You'll be remembered.
Thanks for listening.